Hey everybody, welcome back. I am Robin Reed. Today you're going to see a little bit of my philosophical side. I'm talking about how do you live in the solution versus living in the problem. Interesting in that when we're faced with a problem or something that is really challenging, our first reaction is to kind of look around it. Look over it, go under. Our brains, our reptilian brains just kind of just do this, and we start looking and avoiding that problem and start looking for solutions. And if you pull it back in and really think about it, if you almost like lose track of time here for a second and stop thinking of things linearly, does not the problem exist because the solution also exists? Right? Like, think about that for a second. Right? I mean, like how can there be a problem if there's not a solution? They're cosmically connected. Everything. It's just the challenge is we want to live in the solution because that feels great, but we're challenged with the problem first, and so we get the problem, and we start looking at the problem, and that's where we stay. Because what happens, we find, is that since they're cosmically connected, the solution, what we find is, because they're cosmically connected, the solution is right behind the problem. They are one. And so when you can live in the solution, you begin to think about, all right, I have this challenge, I have this complication, I'd like for it to be over, I'd like to find an answer that makes sense. And so you just sit there. You sit there and you think and you think and you think, and then you finally let it go. You get to this point where you're just like, I don't have an answer for this. I'm going to let this go physically, emotionally, energetically, out of my whole being. I'm just going to let this part go, and I'm going to let the solution reveal itself. A lot of people talk about this as being in a state of flow, where we just move into this place where it's just like, like it just, everything just happens. And solutions come from places where we're not staring at the problem. And so when we can lose all emotional, energetic ties to the problem and to the feeling of how horrible the problem is, the solution will present itself every time. Every time. Because like attracts like, we know this. This is a cosmic law of the universe. Whether you call it law of attraction or whatever, like just attracts like. But we also know that there's the polarizations. Everything has a polar opposite. The yin and the yang, right? The black and the white. Everything has a polarized opposite. So living in the solution versus the problem is a mindset shift of dealing with the energy and the anger and the emotions and the frustrations that come from the problems, and letting them move through us to where they completely dissipate. And then with a deep breath, picking it back up and saying, the solution is upon me. I am the solution. And having the ability to peer into things. This is a gift every one of us has. It just needs to be developed. We call it intuition. We call it foresight. I belong to several empathic communities where we feel emotions and we peer into things. The religious crowd calls it discernment. The spiritual crowd calls it downloading or tapping into or promptings. The verbiage is different, but it's all the same thing. It's that ability to go, oh, okay, I release that. And solution, I invite you in now. And everything out of our mouth becomes solution-oriented. Where we've moved past the challenges of bitching and complaining and these are the way things are, and maybe there's a time for that. And we're no longer in that energy. We're no longer in that space. We no longer have people around us in our tribe or on our boardroom table to find the solution. We are solution-oriented. And the idea of these problems are just simply not in our vocabulary. We have no longer words to express the problem. And it's not out of touch with reality. We know what the problem is. We feel the problem. It's there, the challenge, but we are simply dialed in from a place, an energetic place of just love, compassion, wisdom, where we're tapping into infinite intelligence of every piece and morsel of intelligence that ever has been and has evolved and shaped us and shaped the consciousness of the planet, to tap into those resources and to just to say, I'm going to live in the solution. This can be applied in relationships. This can be applied, it's beautifully applied in business, if there are people at the table that speak in this way. In friendships, in any area of our life where we have a challenge, we can live in the solution versus tolerating the problem. So I hope this has served you. Hey, please go to robinreed.net, where we have the Relationship Academy and some really cool tips, tricks, guides, some neat things to kind of hack your life and hack your relationships and just create those magical moments where you too can enjoy phenomenal relationships, because that is where life begins and ends. Hey, thanks for tuning in. I'll see you on the next post.